a really dangerous thing here is to-do lists. Everyone loves a to-do list.
I love to-do lists.
We have learnt this through having business and getting to this point of being in a state of overwhelm and going, I need to do 5 things right now. I don't physically have that capacity.
Yeah.
So with a to-do list, what it does mentally for you is it's basically you've brain dumped, right?
Yeah.
But you've got a list the mile long. You know, like I used to go to business conferences and come back with lists.
Yeah.
But when you have a to-do list, that is a great start.
Yeah.
But you have to move beyond that.
Yeah.
What I mean is not every task on that list is equal. So there are tasks that might take 3 weeks on that list and a task that might take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But by putting it in a to-do list, you are saying every task is equal. So that's what your brain thinks in that list. Then say you've got a period of time to work. You keep working because you think I have to check off everything on this to-do list. Whereas we have to define our to-do list by time, by importance of task, whether it's actually is urgent or if it's not urgent, and whether it can be done on a different day or whether we need to delegate it, and also by the time that it takes to do that. Not every task is equal.
We are child development obsessed, business besties and mums, and we're here to spill all our secrets.
We have a combined 30 years experience working with children, and each episode we will bring you up-to-date research and evidence-based strategies to set your children up to thrive.
I'm Lizzie Dawson, Australian exercise physiologist.
I'm Emily Mackey, Australian speech pathologist.
And this is the Move, Talk, Thrive podcast. All right, I am super excited to get into today's episode. We are talking all about burnout, boundaries, and balancing our time. So let's get stuck into it.
Yes. So first of all, I want to talk to you, Lizzie, because you have personally experienced burnout.
The queen of burning out.
I mean, I am too, but not to the extent where you can share about this experience. So walk us through a little bit of your burnout experience and what that resulted in.
So I talked a little bit about it in my personal episode, so you can kind of get the journey, I guess, on there. But I have struggled with burnout probably just since my 20s. I'm now 41, so in my 20s it was pretty bad. And then, you know, I've always been fairly driven, so I think susceptible to burning out. I've struggled with boundaries and I was pretty burnt out, I would say, for several years. And then, in 2015, suffered a stroke, which was fairly significant, I guess.
That was right after we had just met.
Yes.
I remember meeting you at a conference, and the next conference you weren't there because you'd had your stroke. And your employee was there instead of you.
Tim, was he? Yeah. Like when I think about it, and they couldn't find a reason. So the neurologist didn't say you've burnt yourself out to the point of having a stroke, but they said it sounds like you had a lot on your plate, and stress can cause a vascular spasm in your brain, which then leads to blood loss or a blockage to your brain, which results in part of your brain dying.
That's super scary.
Super scary, yeah. And I was living life to the extreme in every way. So I was opening, I'd started the business. I had no admin, so I was doing all the admin. And I was in the process of opening 5 other clinics in New South Wales, and I was based in Queensland. So I was travelling, so I had full client load, and I was travelling to like country New South Wales, so out Blue Mountains, like 12-hour days in the car.
Down where I live.
Yeah. And drumming up business basically to open these clinics.
You took hustle to a whole new level.
I really did, and I've really broken it down. And there's some deep-seated healing that needed to take place, which the stroke put me on the trajectory of, which I'm really grateful I used to always say, I wish I was the type of person that could just go for a walk and do yoga. I couldn't go for a run unless it was 10K. Like, that was a waste of my time.
You're not like that at all now.
No, I'm not like that at all.
You go for walks and do yoga all the time.
Yeah. I've done nothing for a couple of days, which is, it would like never have happened. And I think it was a way of processing, probably unresolved trauma from childhood and losing dad. I think that had a really big impact on me. When I think about that, I look at that grief as maybe not progressed with my age, like it's still kind of stuck in that young age. But I mean, yeah, for very like
you were 13 when you lost your dad.
Yeah.
Cancer. That's what you mean, stuck in that young age.
Yes, yeah. So obviously fairly large trauma, and then just striving all the time, like always striving. And there was a bit of a, it's a bit of a tendency of mine to go, okay, what's next? Like, what am I gonna do next? It's almost that lack of ability to just go, I'm okay here. I'm okay here. Like, I was doing Ironman triathlon and 230.
You were pushing your body to the limits.
Yeah, physically. So I did a triathlon. So I traveled for 3 weeks opening these new clinics, did a triathlon, went out partying after the triathlon, went back to work. Like, it was full. Like, it was full. And so while the doctors didn't say this is what they literally couldn't find, like, I have been tested on everything and they could not find a cause. They looked at my heart in every way that you could do. You could look at my heart. They looked at my brain. They've looked at my blood, like, and it's happened throughout. Like, every time I have some little symptom, it's always like, well, because of your history, we'll just investigate. So it's never like, oh no, don't be silly. So it's obviously, led to fairly significant health anxiety, which I've had to manage. And I guess I've really had to manage and master myself to be able to manage that, because I have got a tendency to push myself with a lack of awareness and boundaries to stop myself. So I really have to work on that. That's something I have to work on every single day. My psychologist says to me, you need to do the least amount as you can possibly do every day.
Because that's still a large amount for you.
It's still ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. But I think, it's about looking at what the drivers are and what the drivers were. And it was like, maybe coming from a place of trying to prove myself, or there's a lot.
And do you think it was there with your work because you were wanting to help people? Like, was this the time when you were contracting?
No, I had, this was beyond that. I'd started the business. Yeah. Yes. And so I was loving that. But I was still seeing my clients because I didn't want to let the clients down. And,
did you have boundaries with your clients?
No. Okay. No. Because I was also the admin. And so it was my mobile number that everyone had. So one, no boundaries there. Like, everyone was calling me all times of the day. And then every responsibility in the business, I wore all the hats. So, I wasn't very good at delegating. So I was, doing all the bookings, doing all the scheduling, dealing with unhappy clients, yelling at me if I changed their appointment because someone was away, and, dealing with practitioners and marketing and, doing all of that. And probably trying to keep everyone happy and being everything to everyone.
So your emotions, like... Yeah. Where you were carrying a lot of people's emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because as healthcare professionals, client-facing, we're at a really high risk of burnout because we carry the emotions home with us. And I really feel that. I really hold emotions. Like, I'm quite an emotional person. And so it's been about having boundaries around that and going, well, it's not my responsibility to deal with, this horrific incident that's happening to someone else. I can be there.
Well, you help them in a therapy session.
Yeah.
But outside of that, then carry that emotion home.
Yeah.
You actually can't do anything while you're at home.
Yeah.
You've helped them as much as you can in your therapy session.
Yeah.
So it's taking those emotions.
That's an emotional boundary
carrying
that needs
that
to be created.
That is what is also contributing to you feeling burnt out, because it's pushing your body to the physical limits. You've got such a big schedule that is completely full.
Yeah.
And then emotionally as well. It's like all areas of your life.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I guess it just comes to a head.
Yeah. And that's probably why I was doing all this exercise as well. And, to manage it all, but it was all high intensity. So there was nothing low intensity.
Like you said, it wasn't just a walk. It was like no run or 10Ks.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah. I know, it blows my mind too. That's crazy. I used to do 12-hour bike rides.
Whoa.
Yeah, because I was training for 3 Peaks in Victoria.
Whoa.
It was crazy. That's when I was buying the business. So I did, the equivalent of 2 Ironmans in 3 months. Like it was.
Whoa.
Yeah, kind of a little bit intense.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Coming from someone who exercises at a very moderate level.
Yeah, well, I'm there
imagine
now.
riding a bike for 12 hours.
Yeah.
That
it was,
blows
mind
my
you,
mind.
that event was the best thing I've ever done. Like it was amazing.
It is amazing how our body can change.
Yeah.
And you can change your fitness and your respiratory and, can improve all that. But I guess it's doing it in the right way, not when you're starting a business maybe or, doing that and focusing just on that at the time. Or and
I think you've said it in other episodes, like if it's life stage, if everything's crazy in one side, then maybe you choose a secure, simple work.
Not what you did.
Not what I was doing. But it's just that tendency, and it's being aware of what's driving that tendency to do more, and it's being in alignment with what is authentic to me and what I really want to do, and being able to say no to things that I don't want to do, because when you do things that you don't want to do and you don't hold those boundaries, you become resentful, and that ends up in disease.
You don't end up helping anybody when your whole intention was to help yourself or help others. You then don't end up achieving any of that, actually.
Yeah.
And so if we're looking at, that's so great. Thanks so much for sharing. That's amazing hearing about that part of your life.
Yeah.
Because if we're actually looking at, what is burnout?
Yeah.
What is that? And I guess also there is that sort of phrase, is it compassion fatigue or compassion burnout that health professionals are more susceptible to because of what we said, we tend to be more feeling, more emotional, more wanting to help people.
Yeah.
And that's obvious a lot of us why we went into the healthcare profession in the first place.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at what burnout is.
So, according to the World Health Organization, they have defined it as an occupational phenomenon that is characterized by feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's jobs or feeling negative about it, or feeling cynicism. And number 3, a sense of ineffectiveness or lack of accomplishment. So, and it's typically resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And scarily, the health professionals, according to the ABS, 70% of health professionals are reported to be burnt out.
That's a huge amount of
and 69% of educators.
Again, huge.
Nuts.
Huge. And we have such a critical role to help our children or adults, but if we're talking about pediatrics, if that many of us are burnt out, how are we helping our children?
Yeah, that's right.
How are we helping that next generation?
And that's not talking about mums either.
No, I know. Mums are a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And I guess when you say occupation phenomenon, an occupation for someone's life can be at a period, a mum.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not just a paid position. It can be unpaid work. It's how you hold yourself in that position. And so obviously we can talk that's burnout, right? But then we're also talking about the emotions with that. And so I think that's one of our really big strengths as healthcare professionals. We go in because we have a lot of empathy for people. Yeah. We feel for people. We want to help people. We can, understand. We want to understand people. And that's why we make such great health professionals.
Yeah.
And that's why we go into that. But if that's our strength, that's our superpower. But when we overcompensate that strength, the strength overcompensated, it slips into a weakness.
Yeah.
And it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
And again, this is not really taught. This is a personal development skill. This is not really taught at university or anything like that. But we have, you have that feeling that you have for someone when you're listening to their situation. You take that on. It makes you see their perspective. It makes you understand them. It makes you respond really appropriately to them. However, like you said, if you're taking that home, and that feeling home, but then you're taking that home for 50 clients, and so you're holding all those emotions, for them, and that space for them, and then going home and holding those emotions for your partner, for your family, for your children, for your friends. That is a huge emotional burden to carry, and that's where we start to get a little bit. Well, that's where we get burnt out. Yeah, and so there is compassion and empathy. Yeah, right. So empathy is when you hold that emotion, you take it with you. Compassion is where it can help us to have that boundary in our workplaces, because compassion is then the action of doing something. Yeah.
It's putting action to the feeling. And putting boundaries around the feeling, right?
Yeah, so you're saying, I feel that right now. I'm in that situation with you. Then the compassionate thing to do is, how can I act on that to improve this for you? How can I help you?
Because if you're in there feeling it with them and for them, you're not in a position to help them, right?
Yes. No, because you're stuck in the emotion.
It's about removing yourself.
And so as a professional, so this is different. So compassion and empathy are different in personal relationships, like with your partner, with your children, or with your family. We're just talking about it in the workplace. Yeah. You sort of, I think, to be that professional that doesn't burn out on that emotional side, you step into compassion, which is then the action. And so then, that's our jobs then, is to go, as a speechy, okay, I can fix that. Yeah. Or give you hope for your child, or I can see the long-term picture, which you can't see right now because of my experience. Yeah. I am going to act on that in whatever way is appropriate. Yeah. And so then in that way, when you move from empathy to compassion, you are not feeling that emotion as much. Yeah. So then you've done something about it.
You're probably not feeling it as much because you've done something about it. Like,
so
always
you feel
better
like
when you do something about
the problem.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really nice thing for us to highlight and try and get people to go on the journey of growing out of empathy into compassion, because it's still coming from a really caring place, but it's about using that emotional understanding to then act and help someone and not be a dead weight next to them.
Because if you stay in that empathy, that's really dangerous. Yeah. That you will get burnt out. Yeah. And in a workplace.
Yeah. And there's research about the impact of burnt out health professionals on, incorrect diagnoses, incorrect treatment, or just poorer levels of intervention, and
you'll make mistakes.
Yeah, and we know that when we're burnt out, when we're tired, we're not showing up in the same capacity, and that's where for me now I've got a really, really, I've really perfected as soon as I start feeling resentful, I'm like, well, I've done something that I didn't want to do, and I need to stop doing that. I need to get some boundaries around whatever it is.
So it's not blaming the situation or the person or the circumstance that's made you resentful. You take accountability for that yourself, and then look at working on that yourself.
Yeah, and then communicate appropriately. And then if people aren't respecting my boundaries, then that's another conversation,
Yeah.
Like that's another.
People don't know how to respect your boundaries if they don't know what the boundaries are.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's clients. They don't know. They are like, our principle is that when our clients come in, we treat them as the only client that we see. Yeah. That is the level of customer service that we give them. We don't make them feel like a number. It's like when we're with you, when we see you, you are the only client that we have. Yeah. But in reality, we have another 50 of those for one clinician. And in Speak About, we have another 350 of those. Yeah. So, you can't take that emotion home. No. You can't. That you will burn out. Yeah. And so you have to have those boundaries. Yeah. You have to, which is understanding the knowledge, I guess the theory around it, empathy, compassion. Yeah. Understanding how dangerous it can be, the statistics around it. Yeah. Understanding It is what makes us really strong as healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
But then we can't overcompensate that strength to make it go into the weakness.
Yeah.
Coming back to the danger, we also know that will lead us to have bad practice.
Yeah.
Because as healthcare professionals, we also are aware of the dangers of burnout. We know what that does to our bodies. And so it's a vicious cycle, because then when you're feeling burnt out, you know you shouldn't be burnt out. And then that makes you more stressed. And keep stressing.
I think you know that you're compromising your care, and we all want to help people. So if we're compromising our way to help people, we also take that on board. And so it's just this like load after load after load. So it's no wonder that 70% of us are feeling the crunch.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like it's not surprising at all. And so it comes back to that episode that we did on PD and personal development. And it just highlights how much we need to be looking at ourselves and creating habits that are going to look after ourselves, because if we can't look after ourselves, we can't look after anyone else.
No, and that's our job.
Yeah, that's right.
And just to go back to the empathy and compassion, that empathy as healthcare professionals is reserved for the people that are closest to you in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can sit in the emotion and be in the emotion with someone. You should be reserving that for your partner, your spouse, for your children, for your immediate family. But really to have that at an appropriate level where you don't burn out, to have that empathy, it should be no more than, 5 people, because that's a lot to carry, plus your own emotions, maybe even less, I don't know. But it is okay to have the empathy, but reserve it for close people, like for the relationships that mean the most to us.
Yeah.
And so that is a really good way to look at it with your clients and being at work, and then versus with your personal life.
Yeah.
And with empathy and compassion, we can also then sometimes have sympathy. Like that can be another word that is thrown around a lot. Yeah. So empathy is the feeling with them.
Compassion's the action.
And if sympathy is the feeling for them. Yeah. So you actually, if you have sympathy for someone, you're not really sitting with them in the emotion. You know how when you always see on movies, people say, oh, why didn't you tell me you have cancer? Because I didn't want to see that sympathetic look in your eyes. I didn't want to see that. Yeah. And so we actually don't really want to be doing that with our clients. We do want empathy, and that is a gift. Yeah. But it's moving quicker into compassion and not sitting in the empathy. Yeah. And you need to move so quickly that in the session you've moved to compassion and done something about it, so you don't take it home. Yeah. Because I feel like you take it home when you don't move in the session through that. And so it's basically just to move to compassion, you're just asking yourself the simple question of how can I help you? Yeah. That I think ticks your brain into moving from the feeling. Yeah. That's a simple question that you can ask. Yeah. To move yourself there.
Absolutely. And you don't need to be available to everyone 24/7.
Well, you can't be.
No.
But what about healthcare workers? Under the NDIS, you've got support workers that do 24/7 availability or care, or even overnight shifts or things like that. I think they'll...
Yeah, but it can't be consecutive days. We need to adjust our expectations of what we're capable of. Yeah. Because it's no joke. We can't wear ourselves into the ground. I just read a stat then that I think it was 34% of Australian workers have reported that they cannot manage their mental health, like their mental load at work.
And that's any industry.
Workers,
any industry. So it affects everyone, no matter what industry you're in. Obviously, healthcare professionals, you said the statistics are more. Yeah. What about for those in leadership roles?
Oh, it's more. I think it was like 74%. Don't quote me on that. But it's higher for the leadership roles.
And that's important to know if you're in a workplace. A lot of us have career goals where we're like, we want to be the senior. Yeah. We come into a workplace and we want to be either running our own business or we want to be a senior, or I want to be a team leader or a team manager. Yeah. Those leadership roles, they require sacrifice and they require time and emotion. Yeah. And so
there's higher expectations.
Yes. In order to lead others, you need to be able to lead yourself.
100%. Yeah.
But it is important to know that burnout, you are more susceptible to burnout because when you become a leader, you take on more people's emotions. Yeah. That's your role, is to help people walk through their emotions. Yeah. So you need to have managed that. You need to really have being able to master that skill of moving from empathy to compassion before you step into a leadership role, really to make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, that's
right. If it does, you learn through that.
And like understanding the art of delegation. And I read a really good book recently, Clockwork, by Mike Michalowski or something. I can't remember. I can't say his surname. He's written Profit First and Clockwork, really good books. But he said, like, as a business owner, your job is to create jobs. And that was really nice for me. I think it's a really good point because we don't need to do it all. We can outsource it. We can delegate it. And, we can create teams to do things. And I think sometimes we believe everyone expects us to do everything, but that's not actually...
It's not realistic.
No.
And that's how you burned out.
Yeah. And I think being mindful of that and knowing your own boundaries and putting your health first is really, really important.
Well, because if you fall apart, who's going to then be leading the business?
Yeah, that's right.
Giving all the employees the roles and jobs that they have.
That's right. I must say when I had kids, it had a profound effect on me or impact on my life in terms of balancing me because I had something bigger and external to me that grounded me. My kids really grounded me and they still do. Like I stay in bed just so I can cuddle them in the morning. So I'm like, oh no, I'd rather just stay here and cuddle them. Like they're not going to be this little forever. And it was something bigger for me to go, no, I'm not going to go up to the clinic today. I'm not going to put him in the car for 45 minutes to go up to the clinic.
Yeah.
They don't, I don't need to be there. I've got people.
A bigger perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And consequences.
Yeah.
Like, that you then have to deal with a screaming baby.
Yeah.
If it's really for the purpose of you feeling like you need to go up there and push that.
Yeah, yeah.
The consequences are very real when you have a child.
I know when I had Flynn, I was like, okay, we'll have a meeting every Wednesday at 10 o'clock. And of course, I was stressed about getting him to have his sleep at 10 o'clock on Wednesdays. And so with Molly, I was like, no scheduled meetings. Call me if you need me.
Yeah.
And this is me for the next 12 months.
With kids, you have to be really flexible.
Yeah.
If you're locked in, that's what makes it stressful because kids are not like a clock.
Yeah.
They're not like clockwork. They're sometimes hungry, sometimes tired. You have to have that white space in there.
Yeah. And I just think I was so aware that it was such a precious time and I was really grateful to have something bigger to kind of focus on and pull me away. It shouldn't take something like that. I should be able to manage myself, and that's something that I feel like I've got a lot better at. But it's something
sounds like you're doing really well with it.
Well, I just always have to work on it. It's something that I'm always going to have to work on, and that's okay because I do.
I don't think we ever stop working on things.
Yeah,
there's always new pressures and challenges, and that's sort of that's life.
Yeah.
So we've talked about setting boundaries. So you're setting boundaries in work time and communicating with your team, like you said, delegation.
Yeah.
I think in your work also you have to be careful with contractors and employees because if you're a contractor, you might be like going see more clients to earn a higher income.
Yeah.
But you then can't see more clients at the expense of your health or burning out either.
Yeah.
So it's just being, I think, aware of that as a contractor.
Or a business owner.
Yeah. Or like you said, when you're contracting, you made yourself available 24/7 because you needed to work around their hours to get paid.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take a contractor role, being aware of that and aware that, if you're prone to burnout, that can happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it can happen with employees too, but it is important to note that with a contractor because if you don't work, you don't get paid.
Yeah, I think any role where you get paid for what you do, so it's the same in business as it is independent contractors, sole traders, businesses, it's an art that you need to refine.
Yeah, and learn.
Yeah.
And so,
but even as employees, it's about managing your time,
it is
right?
Employees,
because employees will stay back after work and they're like, "Oh no, I'm just going to get this done."
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's another strategy. I think don't take work home with you.
Yeah, never.
And if you're a mobile therapist, that can be really tempting to do. You take your notes home with you.
Yeah.
If you're doing notes after you've clocked off for the day, whatever that looks like time-wise, that is going to, over time, long-term, lead you to burnout.
Yeah.
You should be resting in their time allocated to rest.
Yeah.
And however that looks like for you, and you should be working in the hours that are given to you for work.
Yeah.
Now, the only exception to that would be if you have a season as a new graduate where you're really wanting to hone your skills, but it is a short season.
Yeah.
And you know your limits and you know.
And other areas of your life might not be as
they're stable. So you know it's very calculated in that. Like I know when I was a new grad, my personal life was very stable and I really wanted to hone in on specific assessments. And so I would take that assessment home with me because I wanted to make sure I was confident with it with the client the next day.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that for a year. I did that for like a month.
Yeah.
And so that is like sort of, again, I think knowing the boundary and knowing it's just a very short-term thing.
Yeah.
But also if you are starting to feel burnout, that you pull that back.
Yeah, I think recognizing when you are on the burnout trajectory is really important. So for me, that looks like sleep disturbances.
Yes.
Emotional.
Working longer hours or out of hours?
Well, it's more how I feel. So sometimes I can do that and I'm fine. It's when maybe a few aspects of my life are, you know, really intense. And it's just learning how the physiological responses and tuning into my body. So I get sick more often. My sleep gets disturbed. I get body aches.
Are you not exercising as much?
My motivation goes. Motivation for work. As soon as I know my motivation, like if I don't feel like working, which is so not normal for me because I love what I do, if I don't feel like working, I'm like, whoa, I'm burnt out. Mm-hmm. So I just go, okay, I'm just going to take the day off.
Yeah.
And I can do that most of the time, not as much anymore because I'm a little bit more in the day-to-day at the moment. Yeah.
Yes, but you have to make
and I'm not very good at it. I'll always be like, oh, just sit on the couch and do a bit of work, which is stupid because
and that's why sometimes if you're either mobile because you do your work from home or if you work from home, you can get into habits like that. Yeah. Or if you're a business owner, you can get into habits or even an employee.
So I work from home a lot and I used to work right up until Pete would walk in with the kids. And so now I try to have like a decompression activity. When I was doing really big days recently, going out to lots of different childcare centres because I was developing the systems and training up new team members, I made sure I went to the bathhouse for 90 minutes every Wednesday because that was my big day. And I'm like, right, every Wednesday I am at the bathhouse from 3:30 till 5 and I'm like decompressing.
Decompressing.
Yeah. So it could be like a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
Or a
90-minute session or something.
Yeah, up to a 90-minute session.
For me, I use the decompression time when I'm driving home. So it's about 15
and
minutes.
That's the equivalent of it. And that's where I remember we were talking to our psych and we were like, oh, Pete's driving home. So he's getting that 45 minutes and he's walking in and I'm like literally, oh, yeah, okay, I'm coming. I hadn't even finished what I'm doing and then I'm coming.
You need to allow time for your brain to settle, to switch or change gears, clear your mind.
Yeah.
And that's quite a healthy thing to do because then you become present in the next situation that you're moving into.
Yes.
And otherwise you're not the best version of yourself.
No, that's right.
Because then you're taking what you were just doing, in this case work, into your next situation.
Yeah.
You've had no buffer there. So, and I guess it depends on how you're feeling in your body as to what kind of decompression activity you need, whether it's 90 minutes, whether it's a quick walk, whether it's a drive from home, and to what intensity you've been working. I find for mums, you tend to go to work less, so you have a very highly intense day.
Yes.
Then that takes a lot longer to unwind from.
Decompress,
and if you're working every day and then you're just needing that little bit of decompression time because you're not at that high intensity, it's just a nice even pace.
Yeah.
I found that becoming a mum. That has changed that intensity of work. But yeah, decompressing is a great strategy that you can sort of try to implement to stop that burnout and transition, try and remove those emotions and just try and switch off.
Yeah.
For me, I like to use the car time,
but
then I also come home and I'll switch off by watching a TV show or reading a book. But the TV show or the book, I'm not on my phone.
Yeah.
It's not, it has to be where it's actually making me mentally invested in the story in the TV show.
Yeah.
And so it actually makes me not think about anything.
Yeah.
Or think about simple things.
Yeah.
Or like with my book, even though I'm reading like Machiavelli says to me, but you're reading, like you're using your mind.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's actually, I'm getting so engrossed in the novel.
Yeah.
Like it's not a business novel.
Yeah.
It's not a book,
It's
a learning book. It's
novels,
a novel.
yeah.
And so I'm getting interested in that story, which takes my mind, it clears my mind, and it takes that pressure off
like mindful.
tasks.
Yeah.
And so it's looking at that, like whether you have that decompression time, you know, in between activities, but then you might need to extend it throughout your night or your morning or the next day to achieve that full decompression.
Yeah, and have strategies in place. Like I like to get up really early before the kids get up.
Yes.
I meditate, journal, and read.
Yes.
And that's really important for me. And that gives me an opportunity to check in with myself and go, how am I feeling? Like, am I feeling a bit achy? Am I tired? Where's my motivation at? Yeah. And then I can work out, you know, do I need to cut something from the day? Do I need to, you know, not run out and do the groceries? Or like, do I need to delegate something to someone else? But it's like that daily check-in. And for me, that's really powerful in managing my energy and health.
Does that go the other way as well? If you're having a really high energy or you're feeling really good, then you're like, right, I'll add an extra task and I'll do an extra thing. So
like,
it's not just the other way.
I need to do.
It's not just the other way, taking tasks off, because we have a large capacity. People have capacity, and it's monitoring that capacity and going, okay, I actually can do that today. And often I might actually. I like to be systematic. Like I've got a big project to complete, I break it down and I'll be like, each week I'll do this. But sometimes I'm like, no, I'll do 2 things. I'll be 2 weeks ahead. So I'm feeling really good. And then I get to the next week, I'm like, thank goodness I did that because I couldn't have done that this week. So it's just staying in tune.
Actually, on that, I need to be really careful because I love productivity. And so I break down my projects and then I'm like, oh, if I just do this today, then tomorrow I'll be off, and then I end up.
So again, it can be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But again, it comes back to
at least
awareness.
Having that time and space to check in with yourself, whether it's during that decompression time, whether it's before bed or in the morning, or it might even be once a week.
You do need to have time, hey?
I think so.
Set time.
Yeah.
And it depends whether you're a morning person, night person.
Exactly.
I'm not a night person.
It might be a lunch walk.
Yeah, lunch walk. Yeah. Absolutely. And that comes back to knowing yourself.
Yeah.
And knowing what works for you, because for some people reading is great. For other people, reading is not good. They're like, that stresses me out.
Yeah.
Or listening to an audiobook. Like for me, I love cooking.
Yeah.
That is really decompressing. And I notice if I haven't cooked, and for me, it's not just the process of cooking. It's like finding a new recipe and doing that. Most people are like, that's so stressful.
Yeah.
I'm like, that actually helps me decompress.
Yeah.
If I haven't cooked, I like get depression.
Yeah.
I'm like, I actually
creative.
need to do something. And I love looking at new recipes and doing that recipe. And even if the meal doesn't turn out great, it's the process that helps me decompress.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's cool.
It also benefits the family because they get to eat a nice meal.
Totally.
But that decompression is a very helpful strategy.
Yeah.
I think it's worthwhile for listeners to look, do they have that white space?
Yeah.
Are they doing that?
And is the car ride home enough?
It might not be if you're working at a high intensity.
Yeah. I know, like, before I had kids, I was going to yoga every afternoon. Like,
oh my gosh. The gym after work, I'm like, such was life.
So, I know, how amazing was it? So I think it's important to, like, if you're in that motherhood stage, like, you might need to go make more of an effort.
It's hard, isn't it? It's so hard. So hard, but you always feel better after.
And remember, we need to make ourselves happy to make other people happy. So you need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Yes. No point. We could have a whole other episode on that. But I mean, the other things that we sort of mentioned are not saying yes to everything, and in a clinical setting, not saying yes to everything a patient asks you.
Yeah.
Categorize everything that they say on your own basis. So not viewing everything as urgent. I think that's a really big point.
Yeah.
We often think, if someone gives me a task, it's all urgent. I need to get it done.
Yeah.
But actually it's going, hang on, what's urgent? What is not urgent? What's important and what's not important?
Yeah.
What is chaos work? What is going to actually move the needle forward?
Yeah. And what's your schedule? Like, have you got time in your schedule to deal with these sorts of things? And I like to always go, let me just check in my schedule and I'll let you know.
We do that with each other.
Just to buy myself a little bit of time. I do it with everything.
Yeah.
My friends are like, do you want to go do this? And I'm like, I'm just not going to respond for a little bit.
Let me
I'm going to check. And yeah.
A really dangerous thing here is to-do lists. Everyone loves a to-do list.
I love to-do lists.
But what we have learnt this through having business and getting to this point of being in a state of overwhelm and going, I need to do 5 things right now. I don't physically have that capacity.
Yeah.
So with a to-do list, what it does mentally for you is it's basically you've brain dumped, right?
Yeah.
But you've got a list, the mile long, you know, like I used to go to business conferences and come back with lists.
Yeah.
But when you have a to-do list, that is a great start.
Yeah.
But you have to move beyond that.
Yeah.
And so what I mean is not every task on that list is equal.
No.
So there are tasks that might take 3 weeks on that list and a task that might take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But by putting it in a to-do list, you are saying every task is equal. So that's what your brain thinks in that list, unless you've done extra steps.
Yeah.
You also then have no priority of what's urgent, what's not urgent. So if you've got a to-do list, you just think everything's urgent.
Yeah.
When that is so far from the reality of the situation. Yeah. So those things make you burn out.
Yeah.
Particularly also if you've got
stress.
Yeah. But you know what? Because if you've got a to-do list, you then say you've got a period of time to work. You keep working because you think I have to check off everything on this to-do list. Whereas we have to define our to-do list by time.
Yeah.
By importance of task, whether it's actually is urgent or if it's not urgent.
Yeah.
And whether it can be done on a different day or whether we need to delegate it.
Yeah.
And also by the time that it takes to do that.
Yeah.
Not every task is equal.
Yeah.
So I beg you, if you have a to-do list, it is great to have a to-do list on a daily basis with you've thought about the tasks that go in the to-do list.
Yeah.
So what we need to do, like in our clinic, we think about a quadrant, and that's from the 7 habits.
Yeah.
We think about urgent. It's like urgent and important are on your axes, and it's like, you know, what's urgent, what's not urgent but important, what's urgent and important, and what's not important and not urgent. And actually that's the reality. Some of our tasks, particularly for a perfectionist, or we have a standard or a level or fear of failure, we put tasks on there that are not important and are not urgent. And if we did not do them,
fear.
Yes, and if we did not do them, they would have no difference or consequence.
Yeah.
Those are the tasks that you need to get rid of.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But you need someone to help you do that.
Yeah.
If you have that, you really struggle to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what I have learned in mentoring.
Yeah.
Is that you need someone alongside of you to give you perspective.
From an external point
Otherwise,
of view.
it's too hard. It's too hard, and that is okay.
Yeah.
But basically, the point is categorizing your list, not saying yes to everything, and knowing that not everything is urgent.
Yes.
And being knowing your time, and like you said, and then if someone asks you saying, "Let me check," let me get back to you, or let me put that in.
Buy yourself some time,
and not being afraid to say, "Okay, actually, I can't get that done today."
Yeah.
If I got it done tomorrow, is that all right?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, that person is like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
No problems. And you've just actually then created that time and space for yourself.
I know. And I think just being realistic, right? Like being realistic with your time and your energy and mapping it out a little bit. Like every quarter I'll look at my schedule and I'll put my perfect week together and then I map that out and I put restrictions in my diary so that nothing can be booked in and around that. Does it always stick? No. But I've got the intention there, and even if it sticks half the time, it's better than if I haven't planned.
Oh, yeah. It's better than having no idea.
Yeah.
No time.
And I tend to really I try to really stick to the schedule, and I stick to what I plan to spend my time on because I've mapped out.
That comes back to having discipline.
Yeah.
And that's a personal development skill.
Yeah.
Is developing that discipline for yourself. Some people naturally have it.
Yeah.
Some people need to work on it more. That's okay. Either way. But that comes back to discipline and sticking to what you
100%.
planned.
Yeah. That's something that I've definitely got.
You've learnt.
Yeah.
Another strategy would be having a debrief. So we've talked about decompression, but having debrief or psychological support outside of work, and debrief with team members.
Yeah.
Often
I think inside support and external support.
Yeah, both.
I think
You need both.
you need your self-directed support where you're doing it yourself.
Yep.
You need your family. Yep. You need professional healthcare. Like we're in the profession, we need to be supporting that in terms of walking the walk support outside of work, like seeing a counselor, seeing a psychologist. That is totally fine. Yeah.
That's totally fine.
And it might be, it might be all different sorts of things. It might be spiritual practices or guidance from someone or your psychological support. And then having it within your teams as well. So you're together catching up and working on what's been difficult, and maybe in those one-on-one capacities and in the team capacity. So it gives people that those situations of safety where they can voice it, where they might not want to tell the team, but they go, I'm really struggling with.
Yeah, it's having that debrief time. It's having the debrief time.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, because sometimes situations catch you unaware and you're like, that was really hard, then asking.
Yeah.
Can I have a debrief with you? I mean, that's why we love Voxers so much, because that does act as a form of debrief. Yeah. And we process through things. Sometimes we send a 15-minute Voxer to each other, then we delete it, and then we say, sorry, that was just me processing.
I do that all the time. I'm like, sorry, just had a vent, deleted it.
Now
you don't need to hear.
This is the constructive message now, or the short form of where I'm up to. But yes, having a voice message, and I have actually told that to my team members. I'm like, send me a Voxer for the point of verbally processing and debriefing. Yeah. Or I do that myself. I do voice memos to myself sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you can do my notes in Voxer too.
And I just do voice memo, and I just get it out of my system.
Yeah. It's very therapeutic.
It's so therapeutic.
And when you say it to yourself, you don't hold back at all. Like when I say it to you, I don't hold back, and then I just delete it if I'm like, oh gosh, she's going to think I'm crazy.
Sometimes you feel like you just it's just a complete mess and a complete jumble, and you're like, I'm not making any sense at all.
Yeah. Or sometimes I'll do that, and then I'll message you and go, don't worry about that one.
But that you need a safe space with somebody.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've got you need that space.
Actually, I've got a few people that are my safe space.
Yeah,
to download.
Yeah,
and different things.
So through all of this, right? The whole point and the theme of this underlying burnout is that we take personal accountability at the end of the day and are responsible for ourselves.
Yeah.
The big thing that we see is that people say, I burnt out in that situation. And instead of actually looking at themselves personally, you blame it on the workplace. And sometimes that is the case.
Yeah.
However, if you then jump ship without looking at yourself personally, you will do exactly the same thing because you haven't managed yourself, and you have the same tendencies. You carry those tendencies to the next workplace. Yeah. And so then what can happen is people keep jumping from ship to ship to ship. And it's actually like if you just looked at yourself and did some of these things that we're talking about today, you would help yourself in that burnout. And the first step is taking personal accountability.
I think accountability is huge, and it's something that one of my huge values. I almost do it to a fault, to be honest, because everything that we do in my business is like if anything kind of happens, any like client pulls out or they're not happy or they complain or anything, I'm like, right, how could we have done that better? What's our part in this? Because I believe I'm going above and beyond within the restraints of work in terms of availability and whatnot, but we can go above and beyond while keeping boundaries, but staying accountable and going, how could we have done that better?
Yeah.
What's our part in that process, and what systems do we need to create so that doesn't happen again?
Yeah. So you're not blaming others. You're not playing victim.
And, sometimes there's takes two to tango. There's
always two sides to every story.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's not ever going to be solely, one person. And maybe sometimes it will be, but I think it's always important to go, okay, what could I have done differently there? And it might even be, what I could do differently is not react to that, how I might normally react to that, and go and take myself home and not think about it. It's
taking that accountability.
Yeah.
For the part that you've played in that. So if you have burnt out, then sharing your story, like even hearing you share your story, you're not blaming your business. You're not blaming the triathlons. And triathlons in themselves aren't bad. They're great.
And what I need to be careful of is not blaming myself.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Yes. But you've taken accountability to try and work on that.
Yeah. And I saw where I was perhaps not looking after myself. Did that lead to the stroke? Who knows? We'll never know. But yes, I had it. That's what I've learnt out of it.
Silver lining, you're so much healthier now. You've changed. You're so much in balance.
Straight away, I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm working too much. This is too much.
But you still kept your business.
Yeah.
You still kept everything in your life.
Just in a different way.
Yes. And so that's the point. you were able then to still keep those things that made you happy.
Yeah.
But you're just changing your mindset and approach to that.
Yeah.
And what was driving you didn't drive you because you worked on those.
Yeah,
those
that's
things
right.
that
Yeah, I
weren't
did a
serving
lot
you.
of healing and
And I think in that, an important point is that we actually can work hard.
yes.
A lot of people, a lot of speeches and new grads, the fear of burnout is making them go, I actually can't work hard. And you and I would attest to that nothing actually worthwhile comes to you unless
it's
you
hard.
work hard.
Yeah.
You've got to work smart.
Yes.
You've got to work smart and
Yeah.
you've got to be prepared to make sacrifices.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by hard.
Yeah.
It's not slogging yourself because that's what leads to burnout.
No, and it's being aligned, isn't it? It's about working hard, but being aligned to your values. It's about being aligned to your family. It's about being aligned to your business, and it's staying true to that and not doing things that you don't want to be doing.
Yes.
So you're working hard, but you're
not doing it's not contributing to making you happier.
yeah, and you're doing all the other things. Like you and I work very hard, but we take school holidays off. We
it's important that we have time with our children. That's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we're not achieving things.
No.
And so it's making sure, and everyone then has different capacities.
Yeah.
Your capacity can change and grow,
Yeah.
and your capacity changes and grows as you do personal development.
Yeah.
But everyone has different capacities. So if you hear somebody saying, seeing this amount of clients burnt me out, don't automatically think that will burn me out.
No, because you might get energy from it.
I was seeing 17 clients a day
Yeah.
in my business when I started. That did not burn me out. What
Yeah.
burnt me out was the business side of it and
Yeah.
learning all that stuff.
Yeah.
People would say, surely you had burnout. No, I didn't. Not from my
Yeah.
clients because I loved it and I was
Yeah.
really good at it.
Yeah. So if that was all you were doing, you'd be fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also did that for a season. I didn't
Yeah.
do that long term and I knew
Yeah.
that. And so I was willing to make that sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's the sacrifice that then established the business because then
Yeah.
I brought in enough income
Yeah.
to use that income then to hire Brie.
Yeah,
my
but it's
speech
calculated, isn't it? You knew it wasn't going
Yes.
to be ongoing. You knew it was
Yeah.
serving a purpose, and you would have been looking after yourself in other ways.
Yeah.
in and around.
My personal life was very stable.
Yeah.
And I would go home and I would really decompress at home.
Yeah,
I then wasn't going home and doing policies and things like that.
yeah.
I wouldn't do that in that season.
It's like sometimes people say to me, actually, you said to me last week when I was like, I'm not going to get this proposal done. And you're like, why don't you do it tonight? I'm like, oh my goodness, I do not work at night. I do not work at night. I go to bed at
But
night.
I was like, it's for a season, one
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
You can do that.
no, I won't do it.
Well, yeah, 'cause you
that
know
is
that
my
you don't-
boundary.
you don't-
Like, I
don't
do
do well
not
at night.
work after 5 o'clock.
But see, that's
Like,
so
it is
good
not-
because
it's
I
a
said that
no
to you
way.
and you were like, no, that's my boundary.
Yeah, no.
So
And I
that's
used to sit
good.
up till 10 o'clock at night doing work.
You did that, did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, yeah.
Oh, back in the day. I thought you did
not
that.
then.
You did
No,
that.
no, I did not do it.
Yeah.
I got up at 5 o'clock the next morning and I did it then when I'm fresh in the
'Cause
mud
you know
because
you're
I know
better
that
then.
I work really well in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I did that. But I do not.
But
I
you
will
still
not work
worked
at
hard
night.
in that situation. You made it work for you.
Yeah.
And how you best perform.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. I think the main thing is don't be driven by fear of what may happen or what can
Yeah.
happen. Be aware,
Yeah.
be balanced, be educated, be emotionally intelligent,
Aligned.
and pull back immediately if you feel yourself tipping. Pull back. Pull back. Like you said, you pull back. Know what gives you balance. So you need to have those activities
Yeah,
to
what fills your cup.
decompress.
Yeah.
What fills your cup. And making sure you're communicating that to the closest people in your lives. Like, if you're a mum, you can't just be like, see, I'm going for a run. You have to, I wish we could.
Yeah.
But you need to say, like, is it all right if you watch the kids?
Yeah.
This is happening in the house,
Or you have a plan.
Yeah, so you
You
sort
don't
of
have
are
a plan. We used to
communicating that.
argue about exercise all the time. We now have a plan. He has 5 till 6. I have 6 till 7.
There you go.
Sometimes we flip it.
Yeah. So it's communicating, but not being driven
Yeah.
by that. And
Yeah.
so it's allowing that to help you make decisions about your
Yeah.
life and knowing that you have a capacity that is right for you
Yeah.
and everyone has their own tipping point.
Yeah, and I think when you're aware of that, then set yourself up for success by having your schedule sorted, communicating to your loved ones and your people at work, and and following through with that.
Yeah, keeping your boundaries. Like you
Yeah.
said, when I said to you work at night, you were like, no, not doing that.
Well, no.
So I think that's the thing as well, the takeaway, is that we don't want people to be walking around afraid.
No.
And so they're not reaching their potential because they've got that fear, so
Yeah.
they never do anything.
Yeah.
That is the wrong thing, but that can sometimes happen when all we hear is burnout.
Yeah.
We hear these statistics.
And I don't want people to feel like that from my story. I don't
Yeah.
feel like that from my story. I've got a lot, out of my journey. And would I wish it upon anyone? Absolutely not. Do I want it to happen again? No way.
No.
But I've learned so much out of it, and now I still work really hard, but I love it. I've just got boundaries.
And balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And more awareness.
Yeah.
And emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So if you're listening today and you are feeling burnt out, hopefully this gives you a bit of practical understanding and some strategies to pull yourself back. Stop what you're doing now. Pull yourself back.
If you're worried about
if you're living with that worry and that fear of burning out and so not doing things or reaching your potential, then look at your capacity, talk to somebody, and don't let that fear hold you back.
Be proactive.
But know and be aware, because generally if you have that fear, you're generally pretty in tune with yourself and you're aware. You'll know. You have to trust yourself. Back yourself and know that you can do things. And we are living proof that you can work hard, you can work smart, you can improve, and you can survive burnout.
Yeah.
We are both living proofs of that.
Yeah.
And we are living proof that you can be a mum.
Yeah.
You can have a good balance with your children.
Yeah.
You can hold business and be a good employee. You can be good at your clinical skills. You can do those things.
Yeah.
So don't allow that to drive you.
Yeah.
So if you have loved this episode, we would love to hear your thoughts. If you would love to leave a review, we would love to say thank you. And this is our last episode for this first initial season. Yay. We hope you have loved it. Again, we want to hear what you love. But more importantly, we would love to hear from you of what episode you have loved the most.
Show your
because we are going to do another season, but we haven't planned that out yet because we wanted to know what resonated with you in this season and what you would like to learn about more. We have obviously all of our own thoughts and things that we want to talk about, but we want to make it relevant for you, the listener.
Yeah.
So if you have loved a certain episode, just leave it in the reviews of what you've loved, and then we would love to do a season or a deep dive into these. And we've said that a lot this season. We could talk more about this. We could spend another season on burnout.
Oh, yeah. Mindset, business.
There's so many elements.
Clinical skills.
That there are to being an allied health professional and to life. So we would love to hear your thoughts, and we will make the next season about what you elect. So send us a DM if you are not sure how to leave a review or do that. Send us a DM. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can also email us as well. Our emails are on our websites as well. There's loads of ways you can get in contact with us through our clinic. I've got Speak About Speech Pathology. Lizzie's got Kids Heart Pilates and Northside Allied Health. And stay tuned. We have another season coming. We want to make it important for you, relevant for you. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in to us. It means the world to us. And we're so excited to be here and so excited.
How fun was that?
So good.
So good.
We have loved it. Thank you. And we will talk to you in our next season. Stay tuned.